What's up, everybody? This is Presto.
CorporalNosaj.
And you are listening to episode 81 of the Nintendads podcast. The Baldur's Gate 3 review in progress? We were talking about this just before we started. It's not an early impressions review, because the game's been out for a couple weeks. But it's definitely not a full review because we're just hitting Act 2 now, or at least I'm hitting Act 2 now.
Yeah. I'm about to take on the goblins camp.
Oh, the gobs. Yeah, that is like the main. I feel like that's the main thing in the act is the goblin camp.
I've done this twice now, and I've gotten myself to the same point, and I'm now about to do it a third time in our co-stream. So.
Oh, you've got. All right, we're getting ahead of ourselves here.
Okay, all right.
So, yeah, we're talking about Baldur's Gate 3 today. If you haven't heard of this game, I can't help you. I can't. You have bigger problems than listening to us. Yeah, Baldur's Gate has swept the video gaming world. Swept it by storm. Is that a phrase? Taken the world by storm, or it's swept through the world, not swept by storm. But yeah, it's like the biggest game right now. It is, depending on who you ask, very certain or likely to get Game of the Year. But that's we'll get there. We'll get to that. But before we do, Corporal, what are you playing?
So I'm playing. I have a
what?
Yeah. You're just now reading the notes.
I'm like, what? Usually there are very predictable answers in this section of the show, but this I'm very confused.
I have what I'm going to call a passion project. I have found something that I connect with on somewhat of a deeper level. And it's not even the game itself that I connect with. It's the concept of this game that I connect with. It's called The Bookwalker. And
I do remember you sending me.
He is the thief of stories. And so the Bookwalker is a man whose face is in the shape of an open book. And his hair is the frailed pages of the book. And he wears a trench coat with a very small necklace that has a very tiny lantern on it. And the lantern is a trapped soul from another book. And he has been imprisoned and he has shackles on him. So he can't use his power of storytelling to progress himself further because the writer's block has been placed on him.
This is a whole lot of metaphor going on.
Yes, he has a machine that allows him to take a book, flip through the pages, place the book down on the machine, turn the machine on, and he gets sucked into the story. And his job is to travel through these stories and steal artifacts. For example, in the trailer, he is stealing a magic mage's wand. And then he has to escape the mage's castle with the artifact and get back to the real world. Sometimes, while in the story, he may need a tool that he doesn't have. So he'll leave one story, go back to the real world, go to the general store and buy a sledgehammer, and then go back home and go back into the story and use a sledgehammer to break down a wall. Or he'll use a tool from another story, come back out and go back into the main story so that he can progress forward.
And this is the game. What kind of game is this? What's the gameplay like?
The game starts off as very high-def, high-resolution graphics in first-person view. But when you get sucked into the story, you are in third-person Hades view. Top-down Hades.
Interesting.
It is very, very cool.
This is weird. What are you playing this on?
I'm currently playing it on Xbox, but it's available on a lot of different things.
Huh. Yeah, I'd never heard of this. This is an indie game, I'm assuming.
I assume
This sounds about as indie as you can get.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because the main character, like he starts off in his apartment building, and there's an eviction notice on his door, and he's like, god damn it, and then, like, he goes to knock on his neighbor's door, and she's like, who is it? And the son's like, it's the guy from next door.
His face is a book.
We don't open the door for creepers this late at night. He should know better. Don't answer the door. And, like, you can hear the exchange. Like, the world is, and I know I'm going to say this word and you're going to stop.
Oh no, don't say it.
The world around him is very lived in. And I love the attention to detail.
You know what you should do? One night, late, like it has to be like midnight, you should just stream this game.
Okay.
With no explanation, with weird lighting, with a cryptic like push notification on Twitch. It should be as obscure as possible. And Cuphead?
Yes, Cuphead. So little.
Are you okay? Are you doing all right?
No.
You're playing weird indie games and self-punishment.
Cuphead is by far the sadist game of them all. It just is absolutely brutal and difficult and hard and like punishing and unforgiving. But me and my name is Jeff, and me and Little Red have been playing it a lot.
Oh man, I never quite got into it. I have a feeling if I started though, I would need to play it, and I don't.
There's a Cuphead Netflix TV show.
I did. That looks good, and I want to watch that. But for the same reason, I'm not. I'm worried that I'm going to watch it. I'm going to really like it. I'm going to be like, I should play this game, and then people are going to be like, why are you so angry all the time now?
I also there's an update. So there's Mugman, and then there's Cuphead, and then there's like Pitcher Girl and some other person.
Yeah, they've done a couple DLCs.
Yeah, I'm excited to progress the story.
I remember the last piece of DLC came out like within the last year. I'm pretty sure they've really.
Yeah, it was the last DLC they released. Yeah. So what have you been playing?
I've been playing a little bit of Street Fighter, of course. A bit of Baldur's Gate 3. That's mostly what I've been playing. Not a ton of Diablo. I feel like Diablo and Baldur's Gate, they don't scratch the same itch, but I kind of started playing Baldur's Gate instead of Diablo. But Diablo has been getting a lot of hate recently because apparently the devs had another like update stream and they were talking about a new game, or they were talking about like, I don't know. Diablo's not doing so great in its current season. I think they need to fix some things. I think they need to add some things. I can't give any first-person stuff because I just haven't really been playing it. I think I got my warrior Barbara to like level 40 something this season before Boulders came out. So not too much. And then I have been playing, thank you Capcom for the early access, but I've been playing Monster Hunter now, which is, if you haven't heard of it, this is the Niantic Capcom team up that is basically Pokemon Go for Monster Hunter.
Yeah.
So you walk around on the map. I don't think I'm allowed to show live video. I've posted a couple videos on my Twitter at Hello Presto if you want to check it out, and maybe I'll post some to the Nintendads too. So we're allowed to post video and still shots and talk about it, but I don't think we're allowed to live stream it just yet. But you walk around and it's Monster Hunter. You okay, I need to build the the Baroth armor set. I look around on my map, I see there's a Baroth over there, I walk, I fight Baroth, I get the pieces, I make the armor. I will say the combat, when you're actually, because Pokemon Go, you throw the little balls. The combat when you're actually fighting the monsters is interesting, because the monsters will flash red and attack, and you have to dodge out of the way. but a lot of the combos and like the great sword, the big ass sword, you have to hold down the button and you charge it up. And if you flick forward while you're charging it up, you can do the shoulder butt. Or if you're holding down the hammer, you can move and you can sort of run slower while you're holding the hammer. And the light bow gun, you can shoot and then roll and reload. So a lot of the combat mechanics and weapon traits from Monster Hunter are weirdly carrying over to mobile in ways I didn't really expect them to.
Okay.
So it's very interesting so far. It's fun. I feel compelled to go out and do things to get armor, to craft stuff. And then by result of me playing that, it's just sort of like a tease. And then I started playing actual Monster Hunter Rise, which is still, I think between when Diablo and Street Fighter and Tears of the Kingdom, when all those sort of came out, that was the last time I really played Monster Hunter. So this is the longest time I've gone without playing Monster Hunter, basically since the game came out. And going back to it feels so good. I'm super rusty. I'm super rusty with every weapon except Gunlance. But Gunlance is so ingrained that I don't need to think about it, that it just feels so good. It immediately, like, it's like you go through, and maybe you can't relate to this being in Florida, but it's like when you go through summer and it's finally cool enough where you put that one pair of your favorite jeans back on and you're like, oh, these fit so well. This just feels right.
Do you know me?
Yeah, that's true.
For those of you who don't catch what I'm trying to say, Nick Yeti will wear shorts when it is snowing out. I will wear long pants when it's 90 degrees outside. I love jeans. I have maybe 4 pairs of shorts, and I almost never, ever wear them.
And you live on the surface of the sun.
Yeah.
Where your air conditioner cries.
All the time. Yeah, exactly. So
but
I wear jeans all the time.
Going back to Monster Hunter feels like putting on something very familiar that just feels good, and you don't realize how much you missed it until you start doing it again. So I have like a million event quests that I haven't done, and I'm slowly burning through them and having a great time doing it.
I mean, we could play that game again. It wasn't bad.
It wasn't.
I know you love it so.
I love it so much. It's right here. It really is my favorite game on the Switch by like at least 100 hours. I will say, I think it's the Tokyo Game Convention, or there's some very large Japanese Tokyo Game Show, maybe some big convention or like a video game industry gathering happening in September, and Capcom is hyping it up, and this is where they're going to make the announcement of whatever they're doing. We've talked about this for literally like 3 years now. They said, oh, we have Monster Hunter Rise and we have the expansion, and then we're going to be focusing on what we're doing for the anniversary of Monster Hunter, because I think it's the 20th, 24th. It's like a milestone anniversary for Monster Hunter, and they're doing something for it. So it's either going to be a remaster or a remake of a bunch of classic games, or hopefully it's going to be the next game, Monster Hunter 6. Which is what they're calling it. Monster Hunter 6, Monster Hunter World 2, Monster Hunter, fun name. But if you look at the development and the life cycle of World into Rise and other games into World, September fits the agenda of when the next piece of Monster Hunter gaming news should come out. So we might be talking about a new Monster Hunter in a month. And I apologize to everyone for what that will do to me, because that will be all I want to talk about from now until whenever it comes out.
I got Starfield right around the corner. I still have to finish playing Tears of the Kingdom, and I am all into Baldur's Gate, so I don't know how much attention it's really going to get.
Listen, I will hog tie you and drag you into a Monster Hunter game if I have to. Starfield, I actually saw a little bit of controversy in the news this morning.
Oh,
Apparently, Starfield is because I guess AMD and Bethesda have like a partnership or a relationship or like sponsored where basically AMD is potentially funding some of the development for Starfield,
interesting.
and
Okay.
there are specific NVIDIA video card features that are not being supported by Starfield, and it's causing some feathers to be ruffled because it's like,
Why?
because you're looking at it and you're like, okay, Starfield's not going to support some features of a video card, comma, Starfield is also being funded by that video card's direct competitor. So it begs the question, did AMD come with a check and go, you're not going to support our competitors' special things that they hold over our head, right? And Bethesda said, yes, no, we're not going to support that. Speculation, but that's the questions. Those are the questions that are being asked as of this morning on Twitter or X.
It's a whole nother conversation. I don't even
So
want to get into
that we might have more to talk about for that little controversy on the next episode, because I think this just happened like last night. People started looking at this.
Okay.
So,
So,
yeah,
what are you drinking? I see you sucking on to something.
I got water, healthy water, and more of that coffee from Aldi. And that sounds
Okay.
like an advertisement, but it's not. It's just really good and it's cheap. I did you ever have Cafe Du Monde?
No.
Cafe Du Monde? It's just fun to say.
Aldi's just purchased Winn-Dixie, which is a southern Publix or southern grocery store down here.
Oh, yeah.
Aldi's just bought them.
Oh, I like all these groceries in one place. Um, uh, yeah, Cafe Du Monde is it's like, you'd probably know it if you saw it. It's in like an orange tin can, and it's like it's from that place in New Orleans, that famous place in New Orleans that makes the beignets and stuff. I forget. It's like the
I've been there.
yeah, that place. Their coffee is Cafe Du Monde.
Okay,
And it's
yeah.
really good. It's like it's like with chicory, and it's just like incredibly dark. And we got a can of it for the first time in like a couple years, and it's
Ascension took Lady Sage, myself, and Caretaker down there, or from this location, it's up and over there, uh, for Caretaker's 21st birthday.
oh,
So we went there and we spent like a weekend and saw all the spooky stuff and went to the Ben Gay place and
we were supposed to go. We had a New Orleans trip booked,
Oh, okay, yeah,
because
yeah, I
my
remember.
wife has family down there, and our flight I think was scheduled for March 16th, 2020. So that was like, we literally like the whole COVID lockdown started like 2 days before we were supposed to fly out.
Yeah.
So we didn't go. But I'm glad we didn't go 3 days earlier and get stuck in New Orleans for like 2 months.
I mean,
Uh,
yeah.
but I do want to make it down there. Um, Speaking of making it places, Baldur's Gate 3, the city
Yes.
everyone wants to visit. Um,
Everyone. Jesus.
so yeah, if you have not heard of this game, I'm sorry for whatever state your life is in that you have not heard of this. But this is the closest one-to-one recreation of Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition specifically in a video game that there has been.
Yes. There's been a lot of attempts at Dungeons and Dragons-esque games, and we've even featured some of them on our channel. Demio, shout out to Demio, which is still a phenomenal game
Yeah.
on the Oculus, or Meta Quest, whatever you want to call it. Um, the There's been a lot of other tabletop RPGs that have been converted into a computer-based game. We were talking about Gloom just recently. There's other ones that are kind of like that, but Baldur's Gate is as close to Dungeons and Dragons as you're probably going to get on a computer without actually playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, and they even lean into it like thematically, like when you need to make a persuasion check or a perception check or a dexterity saving throw, it literally shows you a 20-sided dice, and then you can click to add spells and modifiers, and the dice rolls and it shows you what you have to beat. And I don't think there's obviously other games where it's like, oh, you have to make a dexterity throw, or there's a certain percentage where you're going to crit. But I don't think there's been a game that really like makes the dice roll a moment of interest.
Not only is the dice roll a big part of like communication and combat and skill checks, but from a GM perspective, you walk into a room. Is your perception high enough that you notice this in the corner? The game will do a background roll and show you the results in the top corner. So if you're walking down and you see a pile of dirt, do you recognize that pile of dirt as a pile of dirt, or is it unturned dirt that could be buried treasure underneath it? And that perception check is rolled in the corner in the background while you're playing. So from a GM perspective, like that kind of thing is really cool.
Yeah, there's nothing, if you've ever played Dungeons and Dragons and your DM goes, make a perception check for me or an insight check, and you roll and then they go, okay, and they don't say anything, that oh shit moment happens all the time, because you'll walk into like a dank crypt and you'll just see all your characters perception failed, and I'm like, what? What's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's got a lot of those like nuances of Dungeons and Dragons that is, I've never played a game that's had those same, like, hit those same
mechanics.
weird moments. Character creation, because that's where every dungeons, and that's where the first couple hours of every D&D experience starts.
So I made a note here under character creation.
I see it.
Are you prepared to answer it?
It's default. I have no interesting answer.
Okay. All right. There's a TikTok where there's a guy standing in a room and another guy. And the second guy goes, oh, I just got into Baldur's Gate. And the first guy goes, that's cool. Which one did you choose? And the second guy goes, oh, I'm a cleric, half-elf. No, which one did you choose? Oh, yeah, I went through the wood elf, and I'm going to be doing... No, which one did you choose? I don't know what you're talking... Oh, which one did you choose? E. Okay. Like,
if you know, you know.
If you don't, I'm sorry.
It's a feature that was also in Cyberpunk that
yes,
people were very surprised to see that in their face for the first time when they were live streaming. I know a lot of people were doing character creation and they didn't mark their stream as adult content, and it got really adult really quickly. So
within the first 10 minutes of character creation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really personalize your character. Yeah, character creation. So the first character that I made in D&D was my warlock, Deox, which if you've
That's
been
the
listening to
first
us...
character you've ever made?
No, I made a sorcerer, but I didn't really, I started making it, and then there was a lot of spells and meta magic, and I'm just like, oh, yo, Fate Maker, what's up? What is your name? What is your favorite color? What is the average speed of swallow? The first character that I really, really made and stuck with was my half-elf warlock, Deox. If you've been listening to us long enough, take a shot. For our actual D&D campaign, and I thought, I'm going to make that character in Baldur's Gate just to, see what the differences are in this creation, and I like know the warlock like options, so that's like my comfort zone. So I went in and I had to make every single decision. Every option was basically the exact same for making my warlock in Baldur's Gate. I did warlock. I picked the same cantrips, which I then changed because I used. There's many more cantrips that are more useful in this game than in actual D&D. I did half elf. I chose the same cantrips and the same spells initially, and I changed them later. But I chose the same pact. I chose the same patron. The only difference with warlock is I think Hexblade is a little bit different. It's like an alternative version of Hexblade that they did for Baldur's Gate that's a little bit different than 5e. But essentially, I made all the exact same choices as 5e, and I feel like I have a much better understanding of regular Dungeons and Dragons after I went through this process of character creation in Baldur's Gate, which is crazy.
Yeah.
What was your first character that you made in Baldur's Gate?
In Baldur's Gate was my bard.
Oh, you made the bard first?
I made the bard first before I made the rogue.
Uh-huh.
Although I will tell you, I am loving my rogue.
Yeah, rogues are fun.
So, my first character that I ever created in D&D, was Jasper. I think my first character I ever made was Jasper.
Was that the eagle guy?
Yes, was a half eagle, half man. He was a paladin / rogue, which are contradicting.
That is very interesting.
They are contradicting classes. So he's a level 2 paladin, or level 1 rogue, or level 2 paladin. So he's a level 3.
Is he trying to turn his life around? Is that the backstory there?
He comes from a well-off family who wants him to be religious and holy, but he is turned in the other direction, which is why his paladin is a level 2, because that's his base, but he's going in another path.
Oh, he sounds like he would get along with Deox, because that's my character. Has a very similar backstory. Can we please bring him into the Threads campaign at some point? A little cameo?
Maybe.
Okay. But yeah, I just started also doing the multi-classing. So if you haven't done character creation in D&D, you spend hours thinking about these things and making choices. And Baldur's Gate is the same.
There are entire YouTube videos, if you're interested in falling down a rabbit hole. Pick a Disney movie and pick a character from that movie, and somebody has made that character.
I love
in D&D. There is a TikTok that I just saved yesterday of somebody who took all of the Avengers and made them into D&D.
Oh, that's fun.
It's pretty cool.
That's
so fun. I mean, like, you could use stats and classes and races to make almost anything.
So I've never done any multi-classing in regular D&D or in Baldur's Gate, and I just started doing I multi-classed my warlock Deox in Baldur's Gate. He's a level 3 warlock, but now he's a level 1. I multi-classed him in sorcerer because sorcerer is also a charisma based caster. So there's a lot of crossover, and warlocks only get like a very low amount of spell slots. So sorcerer gives me more spell slots. It gives me a greater variety of spells that I can cast. Cantrips doesn't really matter. But when I get to, I think, level 2 or 3, I get meta magic, and I'm able to restore spell slots. And I think it's called a coffee lock is what they call it, because, and this is funny because I didn't know this when I created Deox's addiction to coffee in our real D&D campaign, but if you multi-class with sorcerer, you make a coffee lock, because essentially all you need are short rests, and then you get just like a shit ton of spells. Level A level 40 cleric paladin walks into a room full of undead. What do? Turn undead. Turn. So yeah, I mean, I made a druid for our co-op campaign, which we actually need to add that in there as a point. We'll talk about
co-op.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you chose your personal character is a warlock / sorcerer.
Yes, and then for our campaign, I did a druid, which shape-shifting is very fun. It has a lot of utility in and out of combat.
Yeah.
Which
I chose the bard for our co-op campaign just because currently my persona is a bard for our Threads story where I'm the GM.
Yeah.
So I like exploring more of the bard so I can help progress my knowledge and base.
Are you going to do the barbarian? Are you going to multi-class in barbarian for the bard, or are you going to keep him more spellcasty?
I think I'm going to keep him more spellcasty.
Just because I'm the druid, I can tank as a bear.
Yeah.
Like that's what I've been doing. So
so you can in character creation you can create what are default backgrounds, and those backgrounds will help add perks to your stats, and that's fine. But I have given my character a larger background arc than what the game provides. Unfortunately, I can't dress the way I want yet. But as soon as I find a clothing shop,
I know what you're going for. Yeah.
As soon as I find a clothing shop, I'm changing his outfit.
No, Jeremy said if you walk into a room full of undead, you use mass heal because it has the opposite effect. So the one shot for D&D I did, it was one shot day around here, and they do Sareth, welcome in. Thank you for liking the stream. It's how I ruined an entire gaming session. The one time I did a one shot, it was just a one shot, it was a Spelljammer one shot. We go into a room of undead. We're all pretty low level, but we have an area of effect healing thing. That's like our main, like, oh shit, like get out of jail free card for if we need heals. And instead of using it on the party, I throw it at the group of enemies. And my DM was like, oh my God. He's like, I've playtested this scenario twice and nobody's done that. And that's not what that's for, but you can definitely do it. And good job. So I always feel smart. I did something cool in D&D one time.
Those are the best moments as a DM or GM and as a player. Like you build all these scenarios in your head and you write all these, scenes out on paper. And then once you get creative players who just do things out of the box, it makes the game so much more fun.
And let's talk, we don't have that here, but let's talk about that real quick before we jump into the combat. In Baldur's Gate, everything reacts to what you're doing. Yes. And so you and I did our co-op campaign on Thursday, and everything we did was completely different than what I have done in my solo campaign.
Also completely different than what I have done in my 2 solo campaigns as well.
So, like, we, instead of helping the druids, we sort of agreed to assassinate somebody, but then we botched the assassination and had to kill, like, a whole room of people. And that set off the alarms, so then a whole bunch of other people died. So it's like, it's not even like you can choose to side here or you can choose to side here. It's like you can choose to side here, but then there's, like, varying degrees of what can happen as a result depending on how you handle the situation. And we're only in, like, the first section of the game, so I can't even understand, like one of our NPCs, one of the critical NPCs, the companion people that I have in my party that has played a kind of important role to the story is dead in our co-op campaign. We did not even meet him. We found his body, Will the Warlock. In my campaign, he has story beats, he has progression. His character and his relationship with his patron is affecting my story, my main story. But in our co-op campaign, we didn't even meet him. He died as a consequence of our questionable choices. So the fact that we are on totally different paths already and we're only in the first like quarter of the game is nuts to me.
So I'm excited because they talk about how your choices and decisions will affect how the world around you reacts to you and presents to you as you progress further in the game. So I'm excited to play my solo and our co-op and see how far that decision pivots us in different directions.
I think it will because like pun intended, I think it will because Will's not in the store anymore. The other thing with like we're talking about like creative problem solving, you can do the same kind of stuff in Baldur's Gate. Like if you throw a healing potion at an undead, it will do damage. We tried to do this and failed, but like I can shapeshift into a cat, meow, have NPCs gather to me near a cliff, and then we can like AoE blast them off the cliff. Yeah. Or the broken technique that people are using is, have you heard this owl bear from the top rope?
Yeah.
So
yeah, they stack a bunch of barrels on top of each other,
yeah,
spawn an arrow bear or summon an owl bear up top, and then cause him to jump. And the game will actually track speed, weight, and velocity, which causes even more damage upon his physical hit. So because he's so high up and he does a body slam attack, his height multiplies his damage, and he can do one-shot kills to practically anything.
He does. I read that the owl bear, when you do it right, it does enough damage to kill a full adult dragon 4 times.
Wow, that's insane.
The question is if you have, you're the DM, so I defer to your knowledge. If you did that, would the dragon be able to negate all that damage through a legendary resistance?
He could use, depending on the type of dragon and depending on what his background is, he could use like a legendary dodge or a legendary swift in order to help evade or negate half damage. But I don't know if you'd actually be able to avoid all damage.
If it was 4 times,
yeah,
4 times its health.
I don't think so. I mean, there's also, as a GM, you can change rules for certain situations or have characters for, so like
if we ever think of anything that clever, you better give us the W. We will riot.
Well, Thulkum wanted to, because he can create and summon water. We were in a dungeon and the big bad giant troll came out from around the corner, and Thulkum was like, "Corporal, you know what time it is?" And I was like, "What?" He goes, "I want to summon water inside of his lungs." And I was like, "Wait a minute." And I had to look it up. D&D actually has a rule that you cannot do that move because lungs are considered a closed vessel. It has to be an open vessel. So he instead summoned water in his mouth when he was growling in order to choke him.
Did that work, or did he just like, thanks for the drink?
I had to allow it. So it caused him to choke and stumble and therefore miss his original attack.
See, what you need is a character with a with some sort of lightning attack, and that's a good combo.
Yeah.
Summon water and lightning. Fate Maker said he might go with a monk rogue when he gets the game Dex main rolls and rogue. Yeah. Rogue, I mean, the persuasion checks when you roll to persuade with the face of the party. I've done it on my warlock. You've done it. It's like you have your thing, and then it's like you get a +1, you get a +3, you roll with advantage. Like you really have to get like a natural 1 basically to screw it up. Fail.
So I mean, we're already kind of in this talking about combat and movement and the mechanic system that is worked around this. Those of you who don't play D&D, it is a turn-based game. So I make a move, you make a move, he makes a move, she makes a move, round resets, I make a move, you make a move, he makes a move, she makes a move, round resets, and you just keep doing the cycle over and over again. Now, what my move is could affect you. Maybe you stumble or falter, and therefore, when it's your turn, you're not able to. You're bounded or held or put to sleep or whatever. So there's different things that you can do in order to alter the order. In D&D, they call it the initiative, and who goes first rolls that initiative. So that system is automatically built into the game naturally because of how much like D&D this game is. My question to you though is, how do you feel that mechanic and that system works in a video game setting? Now, we have played D&D together, and we have talked about how sometimes our combat sessions can be very slow. And I'm in the background trying to figure out ways in order to increase our combat. So this way it doesn't feel like it drags as much. But in a game setting, in this particular game, how do you feel that has been played out?
So, in general, I'm not a big fan of turn-based combat.
Coming from Final Fantasy VII nerd,
Yeah, when I was like
to hear
13,
that.
when I was like 13, I have definitely moved more towards action combat. I still like there's still certain like games where like turn-based RPGs, like JRPGs, like Pokemon, like there's certain things where turn-based feels good. But like I don't even enjoy Pokemon games as much with the turn-based stuff anymore. That said, this is the most non-straightforward answer I'm going to give you. I do like the turn-based. I feel like now that I have a better understanding from what my options are, and I can like set things up, I'm starting to enjoy the turn-based in Baldur's Gate a lot more. It can feel a little long-winded depending on the fight. So, and I think that primarily comes from if you're fighting like 10 enemies, because then it's like you have to wait for the enemies to move and do their thing, and then you go. I will say long fights feel satisfying to win because this game does not pull punches. We are playing on I'm playing and we're doing our co-op campaign on the default difficulty, which is just normal. You can do it on one that is basically easy mode that focuses more on the story,
default, and I can't
tactician. Imagine what it would play on the tabletop. I feel like the tabletop takes even longer because we always have questions. But some combats can go by pretty quickly when I know what I want to do. Like, if it's me versus 3 guys, the terrain is sort of flat, or there's very obvious things, there's not a lot of moving around, I feel like combat can go pretty quickly. Especially when you have more martial classes, like a warrior or a fighter or a rogue. It's the spell casting that takes a little longer, because I'm like, all right, I have 8 spells. Which one is the one that I want to use? Do I want to heal? Do I want to crowd control? Do I want to damage? Versus fighter, I'm like, I want to attack, and then I want to attack, and then I want to attack. So
I found myself in combat a lot, being able to have the entire spectrum of things I'm able to do: action, bonus action, movement. I consistently will gravitate towards the same type of attack simply because I know this one specific spell or this one specific move will be able to provide me more chance of damage than something else. Maybe something else is cooler or more practical in the moment, but I would much rather do something that's going to give me more damage. So, for example, fireball or whatever the main attack is. If you're standing too close to an enemy, you are too close, and so you're more likely to fail.
Yeah.
So I will purposely walk backwards so that I can then use fireball, because I know it has a higher chance of damage rather than just using my sword because I'm up close.
Yeah.
And like, there's a part of me that is, I guess, hurt by that decision. Like, if you think about it from a real world scenario, like the game is meant to be a role playing. You are role playing this as if this was reality for you. If you're standing there in the moment, are you going to take 5 steps back or 12 steps back or whatever and then do a fire attack? Or because you're standing there, just do your flurry with your sword because it's the fastest thing you can do to defend yourself?
Well, if I'm a spellcaster and my hand to hand is lacking, you want to use your bonus action to shove so that when you move back, they don't get an opportunity attack, and then you cast. Because that makes sense, right? If there's a magician and he wants to, like, you know, cast his fireball, right? Maybe he'll push you back and then do
And at the
his
same
thing.
time, take half steps back in order to then do the attack.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And that's all about using your movement and your bonus action, your action, and your movement in the right order for the situation that you're dealing with.
What you want to do is you want to have a caster and not get them close to people.
Yes.
In general. I will say that as a warlock, I do have some up close spells. It's good to have like one or two. Like, I think I have Thunder Wave, and I have another one that's basically like a very small cone in front of me, but it's like electric, so I can shock them and prevent them from taking a bonus action. So that's sort of like a damaging disengage. Because then I can use my, you know, I just want Eldritch Blast all day. That's all I want to do as a warlock.
So while I enjoy the combat system, something that I think I like the most is having my companions and being able to switch roles. So I'm not completely bottlenecked into a certain type of an attack or certain type of spell casting. Me being able to have access to Gale and as a rogue, like I can switch back and forth between a wizard and a rogue and do different things. So the companions, I think, bring a lot of versatility to the combat system and the gameplay.
Yes. Fate makes a good point that I just want to touch on. If you're a spellcaster, and this is more of that applying tactics from real D&D that work in Baldur's Gate. If you're a spellcaster, you want to CC the enemy first, because then they can't take reactionary movements. So, like, if I'm a caster, I'll do Tasha's Laughter, or I'll do Sleep, or I'll do something that causes them to be flat-footed or in a condition where they can't, either they have disadvantage, they're asleep, they're at disadvantage, or they can't take react. They can't do much of anything other than defend, which is a good point.
Yeah.
But getting to your point, yes, I really like being able to, because when I was first thinking about this, I'm like, ooh, I'm going to make my character. What do I want to play as? Do I want to play as this and that? But then when I started playing, I'm like, oh, well, I get to play as a fighter and as a rogue and as my character. And like, you get to play 4 characters.
Yeah.
Some people, and I think this should be included as an option. I don't know how many people would use it, but a lot of people who haven't played D&D or haven't played a lot of like tactical, like turn-based RPGs feel a little bit overwhelmed at having to choose every individual action for 4 characters every round of combat. And people are saying they wish they could just set some of their companions on AI. And I think that, I mean, they're probably not going to implement it because that sounds like not a small thing to just add into the game post-launch.
I mean, yeah, you'd have to have each character have their own decisions for which spells and attacks and movements they would do.
Yeah, which, I mean, the AI for the enemies is pretty good, so I think I would trust Larian, the developer, to make companion AI as good. And I think I would, like, Lizelle, she's a fighter. She's attacking, she's using, like, for the more, like, straightforward classes, I think I would probably set Lizelle to be on AI if I could in certain situations where I'm just like, all right, I want to get through this combat. Like, this is just a fight that I have to get through. These enemies have a lot of health. This is going to take me an hour. So I think that would be, I have to say, I think I enjoy our combat in co-op a little more
Oh, most certainly.
because we can coordinate what to do, and sometimes we think of things that the other person wouldn't have thought of.
Yes. Spooky says a good way to mitigate that is that overwhelming chaos is to choose an option, which is get good. Welcome in, Spooky.
Listen, I'm just a humble warlock. I Eldritch Blast, and then I drink my coffee, and that's what I do. I take a short rest.
Eldritch Blast and Magic Missile and move out.
I did get Magic Missile. I got Magic Missile from multi-classing in Sorcerer, and it's fantastic.
So, yes, I think from playing solo and playing co-op, I enjoy co-op so much better.
Actually, Fate makes a good point. Co-op is good unless your companion orders someone to attack you while you shapeshifted into a spider.
Don't put that lens on me.
That happened.
I didn't know that you were the spider.
But you did, because I said, okay, I'm in a spider. I webbed the enemies, and then you're like, okay, hold on, I'm gonna kill this spider, and I'm like,
I never saw you transform into a spider, so in my head, I was thinking like a tiny little baby black spider. I wasn't expecting this big, giant, monstrous thing. So when I saw this,
my character is offended that you think that they would transform. Why would I shapeshift into a tiny spider? That wouldn't be worth it. No, I'm large. I'm an Australian spider. I'm ready to rumble. I'm gonna break your leg. Druid is fun.
Yes, co-op is so much fun. Co-op, I think, brings a versatility to the game that's phenomenal.
Especially when there was a couple moments we need to stick together a little more, because there were situations.
Yeah, you need to stick together a little more.
We would be, see, this is the magic that comes from co-op. He would be talking to an NPC, I would be talking to an NPC, and we would think, oh, this is just a conversation. But then suddenly you fail one persuasion check and it goes from conversation to tavern brawl. And then you're like, I'm in combat. And I'm like, what? You were trying to heal somebody. Why are you in combat? So, yeah, there's a lot of trouble you can get into very quickly in co-op.
Yeah, the kind of trouble where it's like, ooh, I'm a squirrel, and I'm going to go after this shiny thing, go into a cave, and then die.
Anyway,
Corporal, can you go back to camp and revive me?
That did happen, but I got a cool item.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was, but yeah, so the combat, I feel like it takes some getting used to, but once you understand it and you get comfortable with it, it's very fun. I can't imagine what the higher levels of combat are going to look like.
I would be more interested to find out what 4-player co-op is like.
That we might have to, I don't know who we know, because there's no crossplay. So even when it comes out on PS5,
it has to be everybody on PC.
Yeah. So I know Johnny Silverhand, it's tough to get in with scheduling, but he has it on PC. I don't know. But I would be very interested to try it in 4-player.
Yeah.
That might be them. I mean, combat would be great.
Yeah.
It's out of combat. We'd get into 4 times the amount of trouble.
I would
be
love
like,
to have that
wait,
happen.
where are you? I don't know. I fell down this well. Where are you? I don't know. I'm getting mugged by this person. It's like,
So the companions, we didn't really finish this companions conversation. Each NPC in the game you can interact with, and each companion that you find you can interact with. And those interactions are completely unique and genuine for who that character is. Their personalities are different. Their likes and their dislikes are different. And even the types of things that excite them or even turn them on are different. And you've had this experience in your solo where What's-His-Face came on to you. So talk about this.
So obviously romancing your companions is out there in a very public way. There's the interaction with the bear that kind of put this game on a lot of people's radars. But Yeah, each NPC, when you make decisions, it will sometimes say, like, this person approves or disapproves. And if you hit its tab on PC, but if you basically bring all your characters up, they have a little meter at the bottom, which I didn't see at first. And the meter shows on a hates you, loves you scale how they feel about you at any given point.
Oh, I completely forgot it. I knew that was out there, like in the system, but I didn't know where it was. So that's
Yeah, it's like when you hit tab or whatever the controller equivalent is to bring up everybody's character at the same time and you see all their inventories, they have a little thing at the bottom that shows like a slider where they are and how they feel about you. So you don't have to guess. But very early on in my solo campaign, Asterion, who is a male elf rogue vampire, tried to seduce me in a very obvious way. And I was just like, no, I'm not. I'm good. Like, that's fine. I'm not interested in you like that. And he took that personally because all my dialogue options with him disappeared. And the next time I went to go talk to him, he scoffed at me and was like, ugh, you again. And there was like 2 options. And now every time I talk to him, he gives me attitude and like does not like me because I turned him down. There's been a couple other companions who have tried to romance me, and when I politely decline them, they take it much better than he did. I've declined Lizelle, and she told me it was my loss. But that's it. It didn't affect my relationship with her. Like, she didn't get pissed at me. So Asterian's just a diva, I guess, because not everybody reacts in the same way. But there's one character. That is harder to romance, which I have made it my goal to romance, and that is Karlach.
Why?
I don't think you have her yet.
No.
Karlach. What do you mean, why?
Yeah, why? Why do you want that one?
Have you met her?
No.
You'll understand. You'll understand when you get her.
All right. So I mean, speaking about the companions and their personalities, their dialogue options and their voice acting, like their options are diverse,
So good.
and their voice acting is on par.
So I'll give you an example of why I like Karlach. And this has to do... So, Karlach, like, you know, you give options, and I think there was an option with Karlach. She was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, oh, let's attack the goblin camp. And her response was, fuck yeah. And I'm like, all right, you're in my party permanently. Like, that's how she reacts to things. She curses more than every other NPC combined. She's on fire all the time, which is why she's hard to romance, because she's on fire. You can't physically touch her until you figure out a way to cool her off. I managed to douse her in water and get a kiss, but I still got burned. But if we want to do anything else, I have to, like, find an NPC and, like, there's a whole quest line that you have to do to cool her down to be able to romance her. But it's worth it because she's the best girl.
Okay, interesting.
Who are you trying to romance any of your companions yet?
No, I don't have an interest in romancing any of my companions right now.
Boo. It's only because you haven't gotten Karlach yet.
In my bard playthrough with you in my co-op, I would romance the other bard tiefling that we found.
Oh,
but
yeah. I don't know if that's an option.
I don't know if that's an option or not, so we'll see.
There is an option to romance one of the leaders that we're supposed to kill in the goblin camp.
I don't want to romance a goblin, so...
She's not a goblin, she's a drow. You're a bard. You want to romance everything. If you're not trying to romance everyone, you're not playing the bard correctly.
Just because my character is a sailor doesn't mean he needs to be...
He sails from port to port. It's just how the world is. It's a law of nature. Anyway, yeah, the companion system is really cool. I'm pretty sure by pissing off Asterion, he's gonna try and kill me at some point.
Okay.
I don't know if that can happen. I know there are decisions that can cause some of your companions to try to kill you.
Interesting.
And I'm pretty sure that's going to happen with us in our co-op playthrough. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but I'm pretty sure one of our companions is going to try and kill us at some point. So be ready. Every time we long rest, get ready to fight. So for our co-op campaign, because this has been a point of contention that they are looking to fix. So when you make a campaign, you either start a solo campaign or you start a co-op campaign. And when you start a co-op campaign, everyone can create their custom character who is in the initial part of the session, but then you are locked in. So if I try to play our co-op campaign, Corporal's character is in the party and I cannot get rid of them.
I am locked in as an NPC that you can control.
No, I can't control you. You're just there.
So if I'm there and you go into combat, what happens?
You stand there. And if you're also in combat, I'm screwed because it'll just be on your turn and I can't do anything.
Oh gosh, that's horrible.
I'm pretty sure. I don't think I can control your character. Which is why people are complaining about it. But I mean, that's like the age-old thing of D&D. The biggest end boss and enemy of every player is scheduling.
Yeah.
If I'm doing my solo campaign, Corporal can come into my campaign and control one of my companions. But it's always going to be like there's public lobbies where you can just jump in and start controlling somebody's companion. Like if you can open up your game to multiplayer anytime you want. But if you create a multiplayer campaign and you want people to be having their own custom characters, they have to be there when you start the campaign, and they have to be there every time you want to play that campaign. And I think Larian is trying to make it so that if you're playing a campaign that you started with a friend in co-op, you do have an option to bench their character when they're not there.
Okay, that makes sense. I like that.
So the multiplayer is a little different than other games because we're so used to the world of like Diablo where it's just drop in, drop out all the time. But I overall don't have many complaints about the multiplayer. It's worked pretty smooth for us so far.
I think
aside from me getting attacked as a spider.
And you going into a cave and getting killed.
Oh, that's true, yeah. That's not my fault. There were traps everywhere, and I'm a druid. Perception is not my strong point.
The story that we have so far is exciting, though.
Yes, and it's so dynamic. It's so like the story that we're experiencing in our co-op campaign again is totally different than the story that I'm experiencing in my single player playthrough.
So I'm very excited to see how those different choices will affect us moving on. What do you think those choices though play back into replayability?
Infinite. Like, so the devs have said there are 17,000 endings to the game. And obviously, you know, ending 12,084 and 12,085 might only be a little bit of a difference. But if there's 17,000 people could sit down, and if they all made very specific choices, they will all see something different at the end of the game. So that means on any given playthrough, you could probably replay this entire game as many times as you wanted. And unless you really try to get the same result, even if you were trying to get the same result, you probably wouldn't. But
I saw a story, a TikTok, where somebody didn't pick up any of the companions, just moved through solo.
Interesting.
They specifically made choices to move through the game solo.
I don't know how you would. I mean, I guess you can do that.
They're at a point in the story where they don't have a single companion and they're about to go towards the goblin camp on their own.
I don't know how that would work in terms of balancing combat.
I don't know either.
There are also people who have figured out how to beat the game in 10 minutes.
How? You can't even get out of the alien ship in 10 minutes in the opening cutscene.
There's Baldur's Gate speedrun. I refuse to watch it because I don't want any story being spoiled. But there is a way using Gale specifically. It's something with Gale. You can speedrun the game in like 10 minutes.
Interesting.
There's something that Gale can do, or story component with Gale, where you basically go straight to Gale, get him, and then you do something, and then I don't know. The less I know, the better. But
yeah.
Okay. Oh shoot, I'm catching up on chat. Oh yeah, Jeremy, stay safe out there. Yeah, the fires up in Canada. Not great. Mordor level. The air level is being described as. Yeah, but I think this game is going to be infinitely replayable. Like the one criticism I have with replayability is the opening sequence, because you've done it 3 times. I've done it like 2.5 times. It's repetitive. It's very linear in the first 15-20 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe. And you still have option to make choices, but it's ultimately like it's pretty much on the rails, right?
So there are 2 choices that you can make while in the ship that could affect what happened when you land on the ground. But once you've gotten to the goblin camp, those choices no longer matter. So
the goblin camp or the grove?
The grove. I'm sorry, the grove. The druid camp is what I meant to say. So I almost feel like there should be a way to skip tutorial and just jump right to the druid camp.
I agree. Maybe not jump to the druid camp, but jump
to the beach.
To the when the ship has crashed.
I mean, that's fine.
Because once you're on the beach, the ship is linear and it's sort of like a tutorial area, and I've done it enough times where I can pretty much skip and I know what to do. But it's still, it still takes like 15 minutes. I don't know how people are getting through it in 10 minutes because, I couldn't even get through the ship in 10 minutes. But people, D&D players.
I have, in my 3rd playthrough, have skipped all of the cutscenes and have not attacked anybody unless I was absolutely forced I had to, and beelined it to the console and touched the console. And then was able to crash down, and I was able to do that really quickly. But I don't know how you then get from that point to Gale to the end of the game in 10 minutes. Like
I might watch the beginning of that speed run just to see how they get through the ship so quickly, so that when I make another character eventually, it's probably going to be a paladin, I can just go and skip right through.
Yeah.
But I think people are going to be playing this game for years and finding new things for years. Like, this is a Skyrim level, like...
I was going to say, they say there's 1,700 endings. I wonder if they have a way of tracking how many players have gotten which endings. And I wonder if there's like 2 or 5 or 1 specific ending that nobody has unlocked yet.
No, definitely. Because they have Steam achievements. Like, the Steam achievements, I get Steam achievements every time I do, like, a big thing. So I bet you there are super rare endings where, like, 1 person is going to get it, and it's going to stay like that for a long time.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
I want to keep pushing my main character, but I'm so tempted to do a like a dark urge, like a bad run with an Oathbreaker paladin.
Ooh. Okay.
Like that's to me either a rogue or an Oathbreaker paladin is the character to do the run where you're like throwing NPCs off cliffs and stuff.
I would be all for playing the rogue to your paladin and going through.
Oh, we do a bad co-op? We're never going to get through this game. It's not going to be replayability. It's just going to be the same quarter over and over again. Will this game get Game of the Year?
I don't see how it can't.
So you have, because right now I'm pretty sure it's like the highest rated PC game of all time right now. So you have Tears of the Kingdom, you have Diablo 4, which I think at this point maybe Diablo isn't really.
Since the Baldur's Gate 3 launch, Diablo 4 has been relentlessly trolled online.
I mean, it's tough, and we'll get to this because this is the last point we want to cover is should this be the new standard and all the controversy around the game of it being the new standard and all that stuff. But you have Tears of the Kingdom, you have Diablo, you have Starfield, which could be a real competitor to Game of the Year. And you also have Hogwarts.
Hogwarts Legacy, I don't think was able to compete with Tears of the Kingdom. And I don't think Tears of the Kingdom can compete with Baldur's Gate 3. And while I believe Starfield will be amazing, I don't think Starfield can compete with Baldur's Gate 3 as well.
I agree. Baldur's Gate 3, even in a year where crazy good amount of games have come out, Baldur's Gate 3 is giving me Elden Ring vibes, where it's a giant game, it was released in a complete state, and it's just on a different level, which is what is causing the controversy.
Jeremy brings up a good point. It has beaten out every game of the year's professional ratings, gamer rankings in almost every aspect. It sits at number 1. It surpassed Spider-Man 2 for PlayStation's
Wow. That's wild. Yeah, it's gonna be Game of the Year.
Because it's so good though, do you think there's anything about the game that you don't like or is bad or you want changed?
I mean, I would like to see the co-op campaign as an option to put your player characters in camp. I would like an option to skip the ship. I would like an option to put NPCs on AI so I don't have to manually tell Lizelle to go and use her same attack every round. But I can't. I mean, there are times where I sit down where I have 15 minutes and I'm not going to play Baldur's Gate 3 for 15 minutes, right? It's a game you want to sit down with a drink and just like really go into it. That is a good point that Jeremy made. He would love to see player-made adventures. Yes. I think whether Larian adds it or not, the modding community will make user-generated content for this game. Like, it's an inevitability. People already have like class modifications and stuff for PC. And I think it's only a matter of time before somebody builds an interface where it's like, it's a DM tool where it's like, here, make your own campaign. We've disassembled the game and given you all the pieces, and you can make your own campaign from the ground up. I think it would be cool if they included that. I think that's a lot to ask. But I think modders will do it anyway. I can't.
I have one thing that I want them to add, and it's purely selfish, but I want more races. I want to have the bear people, the turtle people. I want the plasmoids. Like, I want more versatility in the character creation. I understand all these people like the character creation, and the male-female aspect is great that they've added to it, but the character creation to me is very funneled, and compared to the larger scope of what D&D has to offer for character creation, I would love to see more character options, race options available, and there's 2 classes that are currently missing, and I want them both. I want Artificer in the game, and I would love to have Blood Hunter in the game. Now, I know Blood Hunter is controversial.
You're just fanboying at this point. I know why you want Blood Hunter in the game.
It's Matt Mercer's baby, but I want to play as a werewolf so bad.
And they might add it. They've already said that there's going to be additional companions that have different classes that they're going to add post-launch. Lizelle mentioned Spelljammer ships in a line of dialogue to me.
She did. I was there for that. And I was like, oh, interesting.
So, and maybe that's just I'm not as familiar with D&D. I guess Spelljammer ships have always been something that's been out there, but has recently been brought back
Yeah, it's more of a public
by
thing.
Wizards. So yeah, I think those things might be added. They were talking about, they're getting a lot of questions about DLC, and they're just like, we don't have plans for DLC, but it's not off the table, which I've heard that before.
If you don't have plans for DLC at this point at how successful you've been, you're allowing your game to die. May not die in 10 years because of its replayability, but it will die.
I don't think so. Skyrim,
They're
they're still selling new versions of Skyrim every year.
Do you know how much DLC though that they've added to Skyrim?
I don't, because I've never played it. So
There's a lot of DLC.
I think there will be DLC to Baldur's Gate. There has to be. So let's
there
just
are three major expansions that were added to Skyrim.
Oh, really?
Yep.
I don't know that. Let's talk a little bit about the controversy of this. So
it's a serious controversy.
It is.
It's throwing shade.
So Baldur's Gate comes out. Everybody's saying, "Thank you, Larian." So Larian,
take this conversation like a year prior and look at what the potential of Cyberpunk was, despite the fact that they failed, but also the potential of Elden Ring was. And
yes,
then compare that to here.
So some background: Larian Studios worked on Divinity and Divinity Original Sin 2, which is their sort of thing. So they have been making very close to Dungeons and Dragons 5e system for like the past decade. So that's what we'll call a mature system, because this game isn't their first rodeo in terms of making a Dungeons and Dragons 5e type system. They've been doing it, they've been refining it, they've been tweaking it for years. So that's number one. Number two is Dungeons and Dragons has never been more popular than it is right now. We saw a huge resurgence from Critical Role, from Stranger Things. Many cultural things have happened to put Dungeons and Dragons back in the spotlight. And therefore, everybody's coming in with sort of this fresh love for Dungeons and Dragons. Larian has had Baldur's Gate 3 in early access for 3 years, which is longer than you would normally have time for doing development, doing player feedback, bug hunting and squashing. So I'm giving you this background because this Baldur's Gate 3 isn't just a game that just appeared, right? It's been a long development cycle. It's from a developer that has mature systems in place for this type of game, and it's for a franchise that is surging in popularity. That said, Baldur's Gate 3 is amazing. It's a complete game. It's got larger scope than any other RPGs, and everybody is looking at this saying, well, there's no going back to you know, sorry to throw shade at one of your favorite franchises, but there's no way of going back to this bullshit rinse and repeat, copy paste Assassin's Creed every year, where the games are barely done, they're bugged out. Early access means you're paying for the whole pie, but you're only getting 2 slices. People are saying that Baldur's Gate 3 is setting a new standard. There's developers pushing back, being like, no, hold on. Before you go expecting us to pull a miracle out of our ass every year, there's
the problem. That line is the problem. But
yes.
Go on, I'll let you finish.
But so developers are saying, no, all the things that I just talked about. Larian has mature systems for this type of game. They have one of the most popular IPs. They had more time and resources to do this. So it's not fair to hold us to that standard, because this game is an anomaly. This game is all the stars lining up and the development cycle being this unicorn of circumstances that allow you to release a game of this caliber.
I 1000% agree and disagree.
Yes. So
And
those are the facts. I've tried to state them as objectively as I can without throwing my hat in.
I'm throwing my hat in.
Although I did
feelings.
hedge it a little bit with being like throwing shade at Assassin's Creed. But what's your take? Where do you stand on this?
Too many developers and publishers are specifically publishers are pushing developers, but too many publishers and developers are pushing games to be released on a yearly cycle. And that's because what's fresh and new does fast cash grabs or fast cash sales. And they want that, oh, this is the biggest and best, come get it. Oh, this is the newest, come get it. That's why they're doing it. Too many of these creators are not taking the time to nurture their baby the way Larian Studios did, and therefore they will never be able to make the game, any of their IPs, as good as Larian Studios was able to make Baldur's Gate. They refuse to take the effort and the time to cultivate that type of game, so they'll never be able to create it. So for them to sit there and saying it's a unicorn, no, son, you just don't want to put the effort in.
Right? Larian is not a big. It's not what you would consider to be a big studio,
No,
right?
Ubisoft,
It's not Blizzard. It's not Ubisoft. It's not
Ubisoft,
EA.
who creates the Assassin's Creed series, is 3 times their size.
Yeah. So saying you don't have enough resources, and there's some debate on like publishers giving developers the time and the budget that they need to do a good job, and there's that tension, and I get that. But like, if Larian can do it, every major studio can do it. They don't want to because they are prioritizing profits over actual quality.
Yes.
There are a million times where you'll have server issues. I'm going to call out Blizzard because they're kind of low-hanging fruit at this point with the current sort of state of Diablo.
You can call out Splatoon, you can call out Super Smash.
But specifically like some of the Battle Royale games and things like that is like the microtransaction system and the shop never go down. There's more effort put on Overwatch 2. Like there's an emphasis put on designing the game to be profitable versus designing the game to be good. And a lot of people have credited Larian's CEO, Sven, I forget his last name, but Sven, is like die hard about like, I'm going to make a good game and it's going to take as long as it takes, but I am prioritizing the quality of this game. And I think that sort of...
Anthem, Jeremy in chat makes a great example to Anthem. If you recall, when Anthem was being published and first announced at the Xbox Showcase, it got all of the attention. And it got more attention than what they were expecting to get because of how unique and beautiful it was. And their publisher pushed them to get it done faster. And Anthem told the publisher they're not ready, and the publisher said, I don't care, I want it out sooner. And I'll be honest with you, Bungie had the exact same thing happen to them with Destiny. Bungie left Microsoft so that they can create Destiny, and then they released the shell of a game. And while the game was so successful, nobody realized how much of a trash it was until the DLC started coming out, and the DLC reworked the entire story arc of the game, and then people realized, well, wait a minute, this was the true intention of the game. What we got was scraps of what the true game was. And then the true story came out as, well, yeah, this is the true story, but this is what we had time to release. No, it's not what you had time to release. It's what you chose to release.
I think this is the public holding publishers accountable, because there's a lot of people say the devs are lazy, but 99% of the time it's not the dev, it's the publisher. Yes. So people just need to change their vocabulary to say the publisher instead of the devs. But I don't think we can expect to see every game. I don't think Baldur's Gate is the new standard. I think it is raising the standard, which is good. But Baldur's Gate 3 is going to be remembered as one of the best games to come out in like the last couple of decades, I think.
I hope that it doesn't fall to the wayside the way Elden Ring did.
I don't think Elden Ring necessarily fell.
Elden Ring has created a massive memento statue of itself, but it has been lost to the fog of time.
Well, because people don't want to stick through it because it's hard.
I'm hoping that Baldur's Gate sticks in the limelight longer.
I think it will. I think it'll stay in the mainstream simply because it's more accessible and you can pick easy mode and you can do fun things if you want. You don't have to sweat your ass off every time you sit down to play it like Elden Ring. Yeah. And I don't think it's going to be the new standard, but because I think that's unreasonable, because it's just it was done so perfectly well in every way. But I think it raises the bar significantly, and I love to see it because I hate that all the most popular games are like popcorn, right? You need to eat popcorn every year, and it tastes good at first, but there's nothing to it. It's just junk food. I think a lot of these battle royales and Call of Duties and Assassin's Creed and these games that come out, you know, NBA, 2K, stuff like that, they come out every year and it's copy and paste and they suck. And I hate that there are a lot of people out there who maybe have gotten into video game as a hobby or as a cultural thing that don't know anything else. They play what's popular. They play Call of Duty, they play Fortnite, they play Apex, they play, you know, 2K. And it's just like they're just eating what's available. It's like surviving off of fast food and never having like a real vegetable from a farm. Baldur's Gate 3 is farm to table, organic, is good for you. It tastes good and it's good for you. It's not fast food. A lot of the most popular games are fast food, and like in the 90s, people started realizing, wait a second, if I eat McDonald's every day, I'm going to die. I think the same thing is hopefully happening with games, where we're realizing this fast, frequent development cycle is not good for anybody, and we need to put more time and thought and attention and money into the stuff that is actually good. I somehow managed to always make the food metaphors, and I really don't know why.
Because you're in your inner
I'm
fat
hungry.
child is still there.
I'm hungry. It's 12:30. I want to eat some lunch.
Yeah, no, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I think while I agree with the gamer base that I want to see more games elevate themselves, maybe not to this level, but get as close to this level as a developer can. I think it's unrealistic to say that all developers can get to this level at the same time. But it is a light that's being shined on. Are you taking even the right amount of time to do the game right or enough?
Yes.
And I think the answer is no, most developers aren't.
And I think, well, again, developer, publisher, I think the pushback needs to be from the public, and I don't know the inner workings of how these things work, so this might be an unreasonable request, but I think devs, when the publishers say, okay, we're going to give you a $2 million budget and we need it by October, I think devs need to say, no, you're going to get it in February, because we're not, you see Cyberpunk coming out and getting roasted. You see Baldur's Gate 3 raising people's expectations. You need to give us cushion. And if we finish it, that's great. We'll bump up the release date and take several years off the marketing team's life in stress.
There's been 3 different games, Baldur's Gate being one of them, that has announced an earlier release date than what they had initially pushed, because they were able to do things better. It's better to pull things up than it is to push things out. I
think staggering the release was the best thing they could have done, because now look at, to FateMaker's point, the pre-orders for PS5 are astronomical. There are going to be so many more PS5 sales because it's gotten all this attention from the PC release. It's like a marketing campaign in itself.
Not only that, but they've also positioned themselves ahead of not Skyrim,
Starfield.
They had ahead of Starfield, so they're not dealing with the one-to-one competition.
Yes, and I think Starfield and Baldur's Gate 3 come out on the same date, and I think a lot of people are going to opt to play Baldur's Gate 3 over Starfield just because of how much hype has been building. Like, if you have a PS5 and you have to make that decision and you're watching the trailers for Starfield, that's one thing. But when you're seeing people play Baldur's Gate and you've got 30 days of FOMO, that's a high motivator.
Yep.
Yeah, Larian Studios deserves all the success. They really do. Like, I want to go back and I want to get Divinity Original Sin 2 for my Switch just to see, like, a similar system on the Switch. Johnny Silverhand plays a ton of Divinity. When I told him I was getting Baldur's Gate, he's like, "Oh, I played Divinity Original Sin," and I'm like, "Okay, what does that mean?" He's like, "It's Larian's. It's Larian's like flagship series before they worked on this," and I was like, "I know nothing, but now I know everything."
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously this is a review in progress, but I would say this is one of the closest. This is, out of all the games that we've reviewed, this one is the closest to where I really can't find that much to complain about.
The things I want to complain about are that I want them to add more or add tweaks in order to improve, not fix a broken thing.
Yeah. Yeah. You're never satisfied. You're always hungry for more.
When it comes to D&D, yeah, I am.
Yes. Actually, I heard this. You know 50 Cent, the rapper?
Yeah.
What do you know what 50 did when he was hungry?
No.
58. We do need to end this episode though, because I really want to go eat. I want to have a nice lunch. I want to have some maybe milk and cookies off afterwards. Milk is good, but it could be butter.
Why are we sitting through this?
But you really have to watch what you eat, because if you're not eating right, you're gonna have to go to the doctor. I actually went to the doctor the other day, and he told me I was going deaf, and that news was really hard to hear.
Everybody, I apologize. I didn't have jokes ready, and now we have to sit through this.
Sorry. I tried catching fog the other day. Missed. Did you have a side question? Was there a side question, or is it just a barrage of dad jokes?
A barrage of dad jokes.
Yeah. Side quest is what class are you making next in Baldur's Gate? I'm Paladin. I'm going Paladin.
I would either make a Paladin or a Warlock, because I've never made a Warlock.
Oh, I would love to be your Warlock consultant.
Okay.
Here's my advice. Eldritch Blast. I'll invoice you later. The answer is always Eldritch Blast. All right, that'll do it for us. I will be gone next week, so
yes,
you'll be in the capable hands of Corporal. Stream schedule will be a little bit different. I think you're going to do a Wednesday?
I'm doing a Wednesday stream, and I'll probably do a solo Baldur's Gate stream instead on Wednesday. And then after that, I won't be available because I'll also be going on vacation. So that following, we're going to do a trade-off. So I'll cover Presto's weekday, and Presto will cover my weekend.
You need to cover your shift. Also, I should have talked about this at the top of the episode, but Bomb Rush Cyberfunk came out. It's the spiritual successor to Jet Set Radio, and I am probably going to get it.
Those of you who have pre-ordered Mortal Kombat and are playing the game this weekend, tell me about it. I want to hear.
It looks really good. I'm considering getting it when it comes out, but a lot of games. We got the TMNT DLC coming out at the end of August.
Can't wait.
we have, I mean, if you want to hear all the things that we are dying to play, go back and listen to the last episode, because that was the whole episode, was us having a crisis for too many games. All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Fate, thanks for hanging out. Yeah, we'll be... Unfortunately, we're not going to get to play our co-op campaign for like 2 weeks.
No, it's going to be sad.
Sad.
Sad panda.
Sad panda. All right, everybody, have a great weekend. I will see you next week. Corporal will see you on Wednesday. Keep on rolling.
Roll out. Boom, boom. Roll out.